Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. It is 420. It is a special day for a lot of special people. Everyone likes to celebrate in their own way. You know, you put on some music, you burn one down. Some people like to go dancing. I don't know. Do whatever you got to do. It's 420. I'm here with a special guest, the one and only Vlad. I need some help pronouncing your last name, man.
It's a mouthful. My full name is Vlad Florian Bodnărescu Cheznoiu. You can call me Vlad or Vlad, or call me anything. Just don't call me late to dinner. You know what I mean?
I love it, man. It's got a nice ring to it, man. It kind of flows off the tongue. What ethnicity is that?
Thank you. Romanian, actually. I was born there, and I guess we're gonna just jump right into it. Ethereal Hails, my brother George. Good morning, and thank you for having me on. I guess a little bit about myself. In a few words, I am no one. In a few more words, I was born in 1984, the novel. No, 1984 in Romania, which it was a communist dictatorship at the time. So calling it Orwellian wouldn't be much of a stretch, you know. Big Brother was watching, and usually through your neighbor's eyes, you know. I was too young to know any of the stuff. Of course, my parents told me about rationing food and having to buy meat on the black market, and only one radio station that only played communist propaganda all the time, you know. Anyway, when I was 3, my mom left. She emigrated to America on asylum, and luckily, I guess in hindsight, luckily 2 years later, the revolution happened in Romania. They killed the Ceausescus on Christmas, and we followed. We came to America. Myself, my brother, and my father. I was raised in Woodside, Queens. Shout out to Hoodside, of course. Normal childhood, you know. I guess when you're young, you don't really. There's no ought. There just is. You know, at least for me. I don't know if every child goes through that. I suspect that the current generation might not, but you know, that's another story. But, you know, there was times when you could call it poverty that we went through, but we didn't know any better. It just was, you know, we didn't care. I had, you know, my brother was my role model, still is, you know, and my parents had a pretty laissez-faire approach to raising us, which I'm very thankful for now. They didn't push any dogma on us as far as anything goes, and but also because of that, we started getting into, you know, drinking at a young age. We didn't do anything bad, you know. I smoked a little weed here and there, but nothing crazy. But it wasn't until 2007 when myself and my girlfriend at the time, she was a little bit older than me, we went to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And I did I did what I now realize was a heroic dose of psilocybe cyanescence mushroom. And now, you know, that was world changing. That was the epiphany. That was the epiphanic moment for me. I didn't want to just be. I didn't know what happened, but I knew it was a life-changing moment. You know, I remember thinking about a philosophy class I had just taken not long before that, and the teacher was talking about Zeno's paradox, and it made perfect sense to me. I mean, yeah, sure. After the fact, you learn about calculus and you figure out, oh, it's not really a paradox, but abstract mathematics, I'm not sure it really represents reality in any kind of objective way. Anyway, that's what got me started on my psychonautic path, so to say. And once you pierce that veil and do it the first time, they kind of have a way of finding their way into your life, at least like once a year, you know, which is what I did. You know, sometimes a little more than that, but you know, mushrooms or acid, whatever you could get your hands on. You know, never anything hard. I after that point, I realized, you know, only the natural stuff is the good stuff. You know, it's everything that, you know, it's plants and fungus, you know, that we're talking about. Drugs are man-made pills and powders, you know, where we find something good in nature, and then we're like, what's good about this? Let's take that one thing, extract it, and concentrate it until kills us, and it's not good. You know, my dad always says, "Was zu viel ist ungesund," which, you know, too much is not enough, too much is no good, basically. You know, everything in moderation. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit. I apologize, but the next, it was pretty much business as usual still, though. After that, I was still a materialist. You know, I didn't really make the next step in my spiritual evolution until, I suspect it's like this for most people. It was after my mother passed away, God's rest her soul, and that was in 2016, September 30th. And at the time, I didn't realize, but I was the only one with her when it happened. I was holding her hand, and I was reading her book to her, her novel that she wrote, and the rest of the family joined after. But then the doctor came and told us the time of death, and it was 11/11, which I didn't see the significance of at that time. But later on, you know, I found out that every number has meaning, obviously, some more than others. But excuse me.
Yeah, no worries.
And that's what really set me on the path. And reading a book also, a book that my buddy gave me that I just had there on the side that I never started. And I mean, I love reading. I have a lot of preferred authors, but this author in particular, I wouldn't recommend after the fact. I don't know if I should even mention the book. I don't want to disparage anyone, but the book itself was great. And it really, I'll mention, it's called The Source Field Investigation.
Nice.
And it really opened up my mind to the ethereal side of life, you know, as opposed to the material.
Yeah.
And I guess that was after that. Then I started getting into everything. As far as the title of this episode, which I love that you made, but based on just my LinkedIn profile, which is which is awesome. That's when I really started getting into, you know, more esoteric things, as far as, you know, alchemy, idealism, and, you know, as far as art, I've always been artistic. I always loved drawing when I was a kid. My mom would tell us that we had a lot of artists in our family, so it was in our blood, you know. My great-great-grandfather was actually Samson Bodnărescu. He's a noted Romanian poet.
Oh, nice.
I'll get back to him later. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought.
Alchemy, and like we talked about artistry.
Okay, so as far as art, yeah, and definitely during the pandemic as well, when I had a lot of time on my hands, that's when I really started getting into multimedia art. As far, you know, I got into wood carving and knitting, and I'm still drawing. I made a new tattoo design, and poetry, which was a weird one because I never thought I could do something like that. It was on a lark with a couple of buddies of mine. We started in a group text, going back and forth with rapping back and forth with each other, you know, with like gangster rap lines, you know, which we used to like when we were kids. And then, you know, I realized I got in the zone when I was doing it, and I couldn't shut up. Like it kept coming out of me. And, you know, of course they got annoyed with it by one point, but I guess you know, speaking of the zone, what are you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, get the flow state.
Flow state, sure. Yeah. The zone, you know, tapping into the Akashic record, whatever you want to call it. It's real. It's absolutely real. Right? And that's what makes me realize that artists, when they say that they need to be inspired or they have no inspiration and they can't work, they're not being pretentious. They're not being egotistical. You know, it's real. If you don't have that inspiration, you can't produce, you know, any quality creative output, anything beautiful or thought-provoking, or you know, what is beauty anyway? I happen to think it's just harmony. You know, humans most easily recognize it as symmetry, but that's what it is. It's harmony. I don't know. But you say something. I feel
I'm just
rambling on, and
it makes perfect sense. I agree with so much of it. I wrote a book a while back, and it was a really psychedelic experience, because there was times where like I would just sit down and I just start writing, and I'm like, the next day I'd read it, I'd be like, dude, that's pretty good, man. I don't even remember putting that down. And then at the
Were
end,
you tripping when you were writing it?
I'm always doing a lot of tripping. And
Nice.
so it was a moment where, it's the only way, I think. And it was something that I got inspired by. It's been on my mind. It's been on my mind. Someone asked me a while back, hey, how long did it take you to write that book? I'm like, 48 years. I didn't even write it till I was 48.
Right.
He started laughing. He's like, no, seriously, how long? I'm like, seriously, 48 years, man. That's the first book I wrote. And so
your magnum opus.
Yeah. And I think that, on some level, it's a good metaphor to look at us as a receiver in a way, because some people get the download and they can automatically just stream it. Some people got to get the download for a long period of time, and then it's ready to be streamed.
Yes.
Some people get the download, they like to resurface it, they like to clean it up and then put it out a certain way. It doesn't matter how you put it out, but the fact is you got to get in the pattern of receiving it. And once you do, you start seeing it on the wind, you can see it on the leaves, and you can hear it in the voice of a child or someone crying. You know what I mean? And that's the inspiration. I get it, man. I'm with you 100%.
Absolutely. It's also a double-edged sword. Well, going back to how it comes through you, there's examples. Mendeleev, who came up with the periodic table, he said it came to him. It came to him in a dream one night. Or John Lennon saying that the songs come through him instead of him writing them.
Right.
Who's the mathematician?
Ramanujan. Oh, okay.
He saw mathematical formulae, appear in his mind's eye. But I was going to say that it's a double-edged sword, because it could be taken advantage of also. It could be used for mundane purposes as well.
Sure.
Someone could be on a production line doing the same repetitive motion over, and they get in the zone also. Sure, they become great workers, but for whose benefit?
Right.
Only whoever's making a profit at the end of the day. And that's why, like anything else, though, everything. I think it was Niels Bohr said the opposite of a small truth is a falsehood. But the opposite of a great truth is another great truth. And it goes to show that everything has its extremes, and the two extremes really equal each other in all aspects of life.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting a little.
No, it's true. There. It's like a magnet. I think about it like a magnet. When you hear people say, "Oh, we're the poles apart," yeah, but you're still the same magnet. And if you think about the far left or the far right, like they're kind of the same thing, man. They just have different energy, but they're the same thing, man. And
everything, cold and hot. You ever turn the sink on and the water's really hot, but you don't know, and you put it in real quick just for a second, and it scalds you. Like that first sensation is almost like cold. Frostbite, that cold feeling. Being blinded by light or in complete darkness, you can't see. It's the same thing, right? We define everything by what it's not. And then the gradation from one extreme to the other. There's no real extremes. It's a gradation.
Yeah.
And everything, and even reality. There's the material realm and the ethereal realm. There's a dichotomy.
Yeah.
And the materials realm itself is a duality also.
Yeah. I think the problem's language. Like, the one of the basic problems in human understanding is that we inevitably rely on some aspect of language to determine the nature of private experience. And our whole background, even though you and I use the same vocabulary and language is amazing, it's very difficult to get my point across. And you know what? Yes, semantics, exactly.
So important.
Right?
So important.
Right.
When it comes to everything. You could be saying, again, we could be speaking the same language, saying something like, I know you understand the words coming out of my mouth, but the same word could have completely different definitions for us. Right. And it doesn't even have to be known. You could say something, they could take it completely different than how you meant it. And they won't ever mention that. And you'll think they meant it the way, and they thought you meant it the way they meant it. It's wild. And it's important to set these things up when having any kind of rational conversation with anyone to talk about. Like before, I called something beautiful and then I had to define it after the fact, because it's true. What is beauty? It's like Socrates, he used to annoy everybody. Oh, what is that? Oh yeah, what do you think that is? And that's how you get to any kind of real truth, if there is any.
Yeah, it's modern discourse. I'm like, imagine it would be laborious but incredible if every conversation started with, okay, let's define our terms before we begin this. But this gets us back to poetry, Vlad. Like, maybe poetry is the only way to thoroughly have a conversation in which the person can feel what you're saying. What do you think?
Yeah, poets are the troubadours that are
That's true.
veiling the logos in the nomenclature of whatever time space they happen to awaken in.
Yep.
That's one of my tripping ideas that I had. I write down. I didn't really prepare. I jotted some stuff down. But
let's hear it, man. Let's hear it.
Jot down stuff. The funny thing is, when I'm tripping and have really, there's a bunch of things I could say about that. There were times earlier on when I would have these profound thoughts and I was like, oh my God, this is this novel concept that I just came up with. And then I'd research it. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is an ancient thing that, for example, like, not ancient per se in this case, but Terence McKenna's stoned ape theory. I totally thought I came up with that after tripping once. I think before I even knew about Terence McKenna, I looked it up, and maybe that's what got me into him. Who knows? But also, my most recent trip, at other times also, there'd be times when I have this profound thought or this vision that I want to either draw or write down, and I start doing it, but then I stop myself and I say, no, this isn't meant to be uttered. This isn't meant for the profane.
Yeah.
Unless they reach this level as well, which leads me to initiation rituals, rites of passage. We don't have it anymore, and that's why maturity is lacking. People think maturity has to do with the amount of times you went around the sun. It has nothing to do with it. It's about dying to your earthly self and being reborn. And that's what is it? The
Elusive.
Jumping the bull, or the Pacific Islanders that bungee jumped before bungee jumping was a thing, or the bullet ants, the Amazonians that wear the glove of bullet. You have to do something that you think might kill you and possibly could, probably won't. But to reach adulthood, you have to die to your ignorant self. And that's a good lead into alchemy, as far as the ancient wisdom, the mystery schools. That was the initiation. It was entheogens, it was psychedelics, plant medicine. That's you come, you get the exoteric knowledge, which is usually the literal meaning of the symbols, or maybe one level of symbolism under that everyone, the general masses, know. But once you learn enough, then you get to take the sacrament and get to the real stuff, the real knowledge, which you can say out loud, And I guess a little background. If anyone, alchemy, everyone thinks that's where chemistry comes from. They used to try to get gold from lead and live forever. No, it comes from alchem, which it means the blackness. Al, the Arabic signifier, like alcohol, algebra, algorithm, and chem was the original name of Egypt, which means blackness because of the black mineral-rich soil along the Nile. It's also about the stages of alchemy: the blackness, whiteness, redness, negredo, albedo, rubedo. There used to be also the citrinitis, the yellow stage also. Again, steeped in multi-layers of symbolism. It could literally mean, this is how you actually do a chemical transmutation. Putrefaction, then purification. That's how you turn one element to another. Sure, it could mean that, or it could mean, again, dying to your earthly self and then being reborn to your enlightened self, for lack of a better word. I don't like using the word enlightened or the word God, because that's going back to semantics. They have so many different. I have my definitions for them, so I'll use them. but if I'm going to talk to anyone else, I have to, be careful. And I could go into the Trivium and Quadrivium also. That has a lot to do with the original 7 liberal arts, called that liberal because free, because slaves weren't allowed to read or have knowledge. Knowledge is power, as we all know.
Yeah.
And the Trivium is the threefold path. The Quadrivium is the fourfold path. And it's the knowledge you need before the initiation ritual to where you won't freak out. And I was lucky enough. The Trivium is grammar, logic, and rhetoric, which, there's layers to that too. It could be seen as knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, or there's computer terminology, input, program or output or whatever. But and then you got the Quadrivium, which is arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. So it's basically the important stuff you need to know before you figure out the truth.
Yeah.
And the word trivial comes from trivium, and the meaning was perverted, probably on purpose. Now, it's a trivial issue. It's not a big deal. Trivial meant of the trivium. It meant common knowledge, common sense. Like, because anyone had to know that stuff at one point. It's like the word magic as well. Now it's parlor tricks and just fake, Western nonsense, but it comes from the Magi, the 3 visitors in the New Testament. And then you got the etymology breaks down to, you got major and magistrate and mayor, and you could see how casting a spelling is like writing. So you can see how a mayor spells something into law. I know I'm reaching with this analogy, but you use money as an example. They used to use, in ancient times, sigils for magic rituals. They would have a god on one side and a temple on the other. What is money if not the modern version of that? A dead president on one side, a government building on the other. And what is it if not pure magic? It's this valueless thing that people live for and die for.
Yep.
Because someone cast a spell on us
Yeah.
to be that. And that's the real magic, not the parlor tricks, not the nonsense.
Yeah. I'm always amazed when I go to the store and I walk out with like this giant cart full of things. And all I do is give somebody some paper. I'm like, I just burn this guy. He gives some paper. Get all this stuff.
No, but yeah, he's just working there to make some more of that paper himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wild.
Do you think we're breaking through? Like, you think some of that magic is wearing off? Like,
No, I think it's the opposite. I think about this, like what, the 1600s when Rene Descartes.
I think therefore I am.
Revolutionized science. Don't get me wrong, but he also really cemented the dualistic materialism paradigm. And since then, it's like, we have to be enlightened. We threw out the baby with the bathwater. And I get it. I was a staunch atheist when I was younger. I used to be a big Richard Dawkins fan, and now I'm not. I don't affiliate with any of the modern organized religions by any means. Although there's good people in all of them.
Sure.
On the whole, Anyway, I digress. But so throwing out the baby with the bathwater, sure. So after that point, it was only we need proof. We need to unless we could derive a theory, unless we could predict something, unless we could falsify something, if we can't reduce it to its essential elements, it doesn't exist. And that held sway up until the quantum revolution, when we realized how important the observer is and how nothing is as it seems. Schrodinger's cat is always brought up. That was actually, it wasn't really a thought experiment as much of a joke. You know, he was joking. Look at what this theory is showing. It's showing basically that this cat could be alive or dead at the same time, depending on, you know, if you're looking at it or not. And I think that's the what is it, the Copenhagen interpretation, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have
is that you think that is the antithesis of the Descartes moment right there? Like, is that like a jump off point?
It wasn't instant. I don't think it was instant. No one liked it. Einstein didn't like it. You know, no one liked it.
But he said it out loud, and it happened. And then from that point forward, right? It wasn't at the beginning. As soon as he said that,
sure. I think the real beginning. You know, I'm not going to be able to pull the date out of my head, but the double slit experiment is really what I think. That's 0 point for, you know, whatever path we're on now, as far as determining what is objective reality. Does it exist? You know. But yeah, you also can't be too open-minded that your brain falls out, you know, because there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff out there for people interested in this that's no good. That's black magic, for lack of a better term. That's trying to exploit some of the ancient wisdom, you know, to make a buck off of someone, you know, as opposed to just trying to use it to go help humanity or the world, the universe.
Yeah, I heard a good joke one time about that particle and wave. So this guy walks into like a physics building, and he goes, "Hey, gentlemen," there's 3 guys in there. And he goes, "Gentlemen, I need someone to give me the layman answer. Like, what the hell's going on with reality?" And the first guy goes, "It's all particles." The second guy goes, No, it's all waves." And the third guy goes, "It just depends who we're lying to."
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of dogma in science too. Sure. Yeah, especially now. How do you trust the science?
Yeah,
when
dude.
I think it's like what 70% of studies are privately funded by a corporation usually, but
that wants a desired result.
Yeah, exactly. Confirmation bias, you know, on demand. That's what it's yeah, speaking of the universe, I guess we could get into analytical idealism.
What is that? I looked it up a little bit, but I've never heard about it.
Bernardo Kastrup coined the term, and he's someone that I think everyone is going to know soon.
Okay.
Paul Stamets is another one. On a side note, Paul Stamets is another name I think is going to be known soon as well. But Bernardo Kastrup, brilliant guy. 2 PhDs, one in computer science and one in philosophy. He was working for CERN on AI, I believe, which is, I think, what got him into thinking about consciousness. Like, if we're trying to build a consciousness, we got to know what consciousness is in the first place. It's basically his modern take on Platonic form theory, idealism, philosophical idealism, as far as, you know, the perfect forms existing not in any real way, but in this abstract realm. Yeah, Plato was tripping too. Plato was part of a club that was ingesting ergot, which is what LSD is derived from. So yeah, he definitely knew what was going on. But anyway, analytical idealism is his modern version where he uses rigorous logic to rationally really just drive the point home and show everyone that, no, it's not just a wild theory. It's the way things are. Basically, I could give you his definition of it. I jotted it down and then tell you what works for me, I suppose. Let's see. A theory of the nature of reality that maintains that the universe is experiential in essence, which doesn't mean reality is in your or our individual minds alone, but in a spatially unbound transpersonal field of subjectivity of which we are segments. It's basically all is mind. All is mind. We are the disassociated alter egos of the universe, looking back at itself from slightly different perspectives. And I don't want to butcher his theory whatsoever. Definitely look him up in his. He's got a lot of great stuff online for free. Also, the essentia foundation.
Mm.
But yeah, we are. There is no material realm. Yeah, I mean, even science tells us that matter is mostly empty space. And there's some anecdotes about, if you take all 8 billion people on Earth and take out all the empty space within the atoms that they're all comprised of, within the trillions of atoms that they're all comprised of, they'd all fit within a sugar cube. And billion is easy to say, but I think 1 million seconds is about 10 days, and 1 billion seconds is about 30 years. So that's just to try to, you can't wrap your mind. But we use these numbers as if we could wrap our minds around. We can't, but also the range of the electromagnetic spectrum in which we operate, visible light. It's all light. It's all light at different frequencies. Visible light. We call it visible light because that's what our eyes can see. Not every animal on Earth sees in that spectrum. You don't have to be talking about an alien with a star that shines in a different part of the spectrum. Dogs see in a different part of the spectrum. They hear differently. Also, our auditory range, we can only hear a certain. So we know we're not getting the real deal, the real picture. We know we're surrounded by microwaves and all sorts of radiation from our devices and whatnot. We know we can't see it. And Donald Hoffman also has a great way of putting it, and his own theory as well. He calls it like an interface, like a computer interface. It's not the garbage icon on your screen isn't actually a garbage. You're not really putting something in there. It's a way to help you get through life. It's we evolve to see what we need to see to survive, not what's really there, and that's.
I've been reading this book on symbolic modeling, and if everything that you're saying right now can be used and is used, especially in therapy, to help people solve problems. You're basically giving them a new interface. When someone is caught up in a negative feedback loop, you're taking out those old symbols, replacing them with hopefully getting that person to come up with their own symbols, and then allowing them to rewrite their own code. And then boom, they're on their way until the next loop happens or something like that. But the way you're describing it is, and it sounds like this same methodology for solving problems, seeing the world, and if we could get our shit together, harmony is all there for us. It's been written down. It's been practiced. It's just for some reason we tend to find ourselves probably trying to take the easy way out way too much, and then we get caught up in these illusions of Maya, or these illusions of that we're doing something right. It's like Led Zeppelin says, it's the damn it, now I can't think of the song. I was gonna say the same old song, but that's not the song. Remains the same. There we go.
I'm a casual fan. Not a huge. I'm a big. I don't know if you're it's a Motorhead at all.
Oh, nice, man. Nice. Yeah, I'm fascinated by the ideas of the past resurfacing now. And you had spoke somewhat about the mystery schools. I'm curious to get your thoughts on. Do you think that I had this idea? And I'll just throw it out and tell me what you think. I don't think anything's ever really learned. I think it's unveiled to you. Like people go to school to learn, but you're just, the real learning happens when something is unveiled to you. And that happens all the time in like a psychedelic trip or in a relationship, but the truths are there. They're just unveiled to you at times, and different people at different times. What do you think?
Sure. Absolutely. That's why the sages always speak paradoxically.
Yeah.
They never tell you outright, and then they might tell you one thing one time and then contradict themselves. Yeah. Then you point it out, and they might laugh. That's what I picture in my head. Just someone laughing, saying a paradox every day, but profound ones. It's about going back to the extremes and about the balance. The universe is always in balance. It's always. We can't help that. Nothing. We're insignificant as far as the universe is concerned, and we're super significant also. Everyone is infinitely special, but they most forget to realize that everyone else is also.
Yeah.
They stop at I am, the ego, even though, I am is a very powerful phrase to say if you really know what it means, if you know yourself. But yeah, the balance, that's why negativity has to exist. You can't, I know a lot of people, they try to erase it from their lives. They try to ignore people in their lives, loved ones who are going through, oh no, their negativity is rubbing off. I don't like, you can't deny it. You have to, suffering is inevitable. You have to choose your own suffering, or the universe will choose it for you. And
it's the greatest teacher, right?
Absolutely. But the thing is, it's relative.
It's true.
One person's suffering, the rich, spoiled brat, that doesn't get ice cream one day. That's suffering for that, hypothetical brat is just as much as for someone that never had anything their whole life, and then, having a death in the family, someone that's so humble their whole life, and then having something really traumatic, because what is, you can't gauge trauma, but that's why it's relative. But that's a good thing that it's relative. That means that we can have the negativity without having to really have the worst of humanity come out, and that's not humanity. Those are animals, the people. Because we are animals, we are. We're animals, but we have the potential. We have these transceivers in our head that tap into the universal consciousness. We have the potential for infinite love. There's no sin in the forest. There's rape, theft, murder. It's a daily occasion for animals. We don't look down on them as if they're doing anything wrong, but we're have the capability to rise above our urges, our animalistic urges, to see them for what they are, and to be truly human, and to see that we are one organism, atop this floating orb in space. How does it not blow people's minds? How does it not make them want to figure it out? But people have been asking these questions forever, and we ask them. Well, I'll speak for myself. I ask these questions from a position. I'm not rich. I'm not any kind of great standing in life, but I appreciate what I have, and I realize what I have. Growing up in America, I don't know, what were we talking about?
Well, I was thinking the same thing as far as when I think about the profound daily lives that we have, or just the fact that we're on this giant spaceship orbiting around a star that's orbiting around a galaxy. When you start thinking about how big and limitless the actual thing is, no wonder why we live in such small worlds. We live in this small ideological bubble because we're all afraid of what the truth really is, and so we start fighting each other. But it comes down to fear. And I think that you can see, if I've been doing this exercise where, it works both ways. You can look at the macro and understand the micro, or you can look at the micro and understand the macro.
As above, so below.
Yeah, man, it's so true. And the sooner you begin to see the patterns there, the more you can make sense, and the more you understand that the answer to everything is in a grain of sand. It's in the trees. Absolutely. It's in the mirror. It's in your computer. The answers are everywhere. And that's when you begin to understand that, information is not learned at a school. Like we said earlier, it's something that's revealed to you. And the more you experiment, the more you're willing to go out of your bubble, the more you're willing to experience other people as yourself, the more knowledge that you begin to actually encounter. And then you can put it into your life, and you can help other people do that. And I think we're on the cusp of that, though, Vlad. Maybe it's just because of where I'm at and the people moving on. Do you think we're moving in that direction?
Absolutely. Not to get too new agey, but I think it's been happening since 2012. I think it did happen in 2012. I think we are on an upswing, if you want to call it the Kali Yuga, or the end of the Kali Yuga. These cycles that we're going through. But going back to the fractal nature of reality, Nassim Haramein, he's in Hawaii. He's based in Hawaii. he has some far out theories as far as when you talk about the big and the small. You talk about the Planck scale and then the universe as a whole, and make a scale out of it. He says that, you know, life, molecular biology is right in the middle of that scale. So that's why we, as advanced life, you know, advanced as far as this planet is concerned at this epoch, you know, but that's why we are the feedback loop of the universe itself, because we inhabit that point between, if this Planck scale is the smallest and the universe itself is the largest, the middle of that scale is us. He also says that, speaking of, you know, the Earth rotating and revolving about the sun, and the sun revolving about the center of the Milky Way, the Milky Way itself dancing with Andromeda, and the local group and the superclusters and all that. We don't feel any of this motion because like in the eye of a hurricane, how it's complete stillness, because we are the center. Everyone individually is the center of the universe. If it is the center of an infinite space, is every point, right? It's the same distance. So that's why we don't realize that we're going like however many tens of thousands of miles per hour through space right now. Who knows? He's got some far out concepts, but you know, I try to, you know, I listen to everyone. I give everyone gets the benefit of the doubt. I try to take in as much information as I could from any source, any outlet, any walk of life, as long as it's asking the real questions, as long as it's, you know, getting to the real stuff.
I'm the same way. I love to. It's a real treat when you get to hear a different perspective that you haven't heard before. You know, it's like reading a good book, or a good perspective that you haven't heard before can be life-changing, because it's something that you can apply to your life, to all your theories, to all your ideas. And it's like the perfect Lego you found to make the thing. Like, yeah, I found the red one. I needed that for the front. Yeah, you get all stoked.
Absolutely, man.
What do you have like when it comes to psychedelics? Like, do you have one that you work with most, or do you like certain kinds of them, or what's your? Is there?
I prefer mushrooms.
Yeah.
Psilocybe mushrooms. You know, I've never done Amanita or any of the other, because I know there's other varieties. Mostly, you know, what I could get my hands on being in New York, you know, it's not anything that you really go out looking for. Again, you meet people that are like-minded, that just and they just happen, you know. Usually, again, like I said earlier, it's not something you need to go looking out for once it enters your life.
It's true.
You know, I lived in Portland, Oregon briefly, and there, you know, it was big. It wasn't decriminalized. I believe recently it was decriminalized in Oregon and Colorado and possibly California. I'm not sure, but the revolution is definitely happening, and now it's going to be better than the first time around because of the internet. You know, the first time around, they did the best they could. You know, that era.
I think it's just the you know, when you do mushrooms, it tends to come in waves. Like, you get the first wave, the second wave. I think that this is like we just started this trip, and maybe the 50s and 60s was like the come up, like the first little initial wave, and this is like the next wave. So it's going to go even further. You know, it's probably back off, and then, you know, but I don't think we've begun to peak yet by any means. But this particular wave is going to go deep, I think.
Right. I mean, going back to the yugas, the ages, you know, according to that, we're coming out of the bottom one into the next one up. We're nowhere near the golden age where everybody's So the transition is still going to be awesome. We're coming from the worst one into the next one. So that's going to be great. You know, for us, it's going to be awesome. It's nowhere near our full potential that we could reach.
Yeah.
You know, and speaking of waves, also, you know, acid is also a great time, and I feel like it's a little, I don't know, it's different. It's maybe a little easier to manage. You know, you could still do stuff. You don't have to just like be in a vegged out state. I like to trip by myself.
Yeah,
also.
I'm with you there.
I know some people like, tripping with other people. I've tripped with my buddies. I've got a couple of them to do it,
Yeah.
which is awesome, and no regrets. They loved it. But for the most part, I like doing it by myself. I like,
I like to think.
setting, all that good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you get this idea from it too, where everybody has different experiences and stuff like that. But I feel like the more you do anything, the more you become comfortable in that environment. And sometimes after I find myself in this environment, like about, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours in, I feel like I'm in this space where I'm being given ideas that I can try on as my own, and I can live them for a little while and be like, oh, this is good. But sometimes I'll just get an evil one and I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, I would make so much money doing that. I just have to take it off and be like, okay, wait a minute. That's so gross. Yeah, I could totally do that. But that's so wrong, man. You got to give that idea back. It's like you're like the information, you're like in this room and all these ideas are just hanging on all these racks and you could pick them up and be like, okay, I could see that, but it's
you
fascinating.
You could always play devil's advocate. You could say, oh, I shouldn't do this because it's just for the money. You could always say, oh, but I could take that money and then use it to do all these.
I know. I sit with those ideas, but ultimately I come back to them like, it's a little too tempting, man. I love it, but no thanks.
Paradoxes, man.
It's true.
All about. It's true. You could see everything every way, and you're right all the time.
It's the beauty of being in the center of the universe.
Exactly. That's why you gotta. It's like an RPG game. That's what life is like. You got to find your party. You got to find your party of like-minded, but in more ways than one. Because you are. The ego, I suppose, or the individual, you're the main character of the game, sure, but you're also the player, and you're also the system that is being played on, and you're also the game disc that it exists in, and you're also your party, and you're also the non-playable character,
right?
The NPCs, right? The ones that are in the zone for someone else's benefit, that are pieces in someone else's game instead of building their own reality and being in control of their, like we all should be.
Yeah. I think that brings it back to the observe. Like if you pay attention, you can see yourself becoming all those people at times, right? Like, oh, I'm just right here to give a clue to this person. That's my role right now.
Exactly. Right. People get stuck on themselves wanting to do everything. They don't realize that it's just as important to inspire someone, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think it's by design. I really do. Ever since like the early 80s, I think, when the corporatocracy took over, it wasn't so much. American greatness still mattered, but we didn't need to have the smartest people anymore. Like we had to during the Cold War, during the space race, we needed consumers. We needed programmable consumers that will, just keep making the rich richer and propping them up.
Pavlovian dogs.
Yeah. That's why, the rote memorization in school, like you were saying before, that's what it's all about. And it's getting harder and harder to, pierce through the veil to try to. But I'm heartened. I think there's more people now than ever, again, probably because of the internet, more people now than ever that are aware, that something else exists other than what they've been taught,
Yeah.
And I think, again, we are in an exciting time. I imagine everyone said that at every time in history. It's 1800. You know what's going to happen? It's like, do you remember? So, there's a little bit of that,
Sure.
There's a little bit of that to it too, but
I think it's what we need. I think it's contagious. And I think that when people begin seeing the world full of opportunities, like those opportunities begin to happen. And so when you and I are here talking and we're seeing these things, or, there's some people, there's a whole nother dimension of people that are like, dude, we're going to nuclear war tomorrow, man. There's just these, and like you said, you could switch between those groups as fast as you could change your mind, man. You change the channel, there you are. Change the channel, there you are.
Yep.
but on some level, I feel that, I don't know. I feel like and everybody probably thinks this, but I feel like we're the good channel. So we're trying to get ratings. You know what I mean? And like, well, more people on the team over here.
I mean, everyone thinks they're the good channel. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, I do too. Don't get me wrong. Yes.
I know.
We're the good channel. Come on. Of course we are, damn it. It's just, I don't know. You know,
those words like, what is good or bad? I'm trying to stop using those words, but they just tend to flow out of my mouth.
Right. You know, it goes back to the opposites being equal to each other. Good, you know, and fear. You mentioned fear before. Fear is a big one because that's really what it boils down to, right? Fear and love. That's everything else comes from one of those two. I don't even want to call them, you know, emotions or feelings. These are just the only two modes of operation for humans: fear and love. And it's a choice. It is a choice. You know, free will. That's another tough debate. You know, but I believe free will, sure, insofar as it resonates with any other conscious agents in your vicinity. Because you know, what's free will? If there's a gorilla in front of you and I say, I choose for you not to, you know, destroy me, you know, it doesn't matter what you choose. You know, if the gorilla chooses not to pound you, great. You know, but again, insofar as it resonates,
right?
You know, that's what it's all about. It's all vibrations. It's all you know. In every sense of the word, it's all good vibes. You know, because it really is. Tesla knew it, you know. It's all frequencies, different frequencies, and that's what matter is too. It's just the energy vibrating at a high enough frequency.
I tend to go with when everyone gives. I do this too sometimes, but it seems like there's a lot of situations where you have to ask yourself either or. When I find myself there, I try to always replace it with both and. I find that always tries to at least give you some room to be the observer again, or trying to pull you out of that dichotomy. You know what I mean?
It's almost like the improv comic thing. Yes, and you know, always going with it. You know, telling yourself, forcing yourself to, even if you're not comfortable, go with it. You know, and add to it. And absolutely, you know, it's annoying a lot of times to my friends. I'll play.
That makes it more funny, though, right?
Absolutely. You know, I'll sometimes argue a point, even if I don't believe in it, just to see if we could get any closer to any kind of, you know, objective truth about anything. Whether or not you can, you know, I don't know. But usually by that point, we're a couple of beers in, and and we lost track of what the point of the conversation was. But it's, you know, we're still going at it for some reason. That's what it's all about. You know, just everyone is you. Everyone is you. Looking back at yourself. In that book, that first book that set me on my path. Well, I learned about the Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian prayer. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. People have their other versions of it, but also I think it's a Mayan saying. It's in lakech and alakin. It means I am another you, and then the response is, what I do to you, I do to myself. You know, which I think it's so profound, because it's true. You know, the people you don't like or you don't get along with, they're just showing you sides of yourself you don't know you have. They're showing you aspects of yourself that you don't like about yourself.
Yes.
And you can't see that that's why you don't like something about them. You know, it's hard for most people, I suppose.
Yeah, they're showing you what you got to work on. But it's like you said, it's hard to understand that. But once you do, it's life-changing. Like, oh, that's what I don't like about myself. Because how would you recognize it if you didn't do it, right? Like, how could you recognize anything in anybody else unless you did those things?
See, the thing is, taking entheogens is, because it's possible. It's possible for people to realize, you know, through meditation or, you know, being in a in complete darkness for long enough and letting your melatonin turn into DMT. I guess I don't know if that is. I guess that is natural, but anyway, I have to remind myself, and my one buddy that I turned on to mushrooms, I have to remind him sometimes too that you join this club now, so it's people are going to do stuff that seems weird to you now, and that you used to do, and now you can't imagine why you used to do it. But don't judge them. They know not. They haven't partaken of the sacrament yet. That's what it is. It's the true religious experience. And I think that's what the original experiences were. That's what the communion was. Eating the body was eating the actual
God. Yeah.
That's what. And now it's a wafer or something. And even the wine. I think the wine back then, when they say wine in those times, it was a way stronger substance, also infused with plant medicine as well. When they talk about Dionysus, drinking wine, it wasn't the kind of stuff, it wasn't yellowtail or something. They were drinking powerful stuff, and that's another thing that's been occulted. There's another great word that was perverted, probably on purpose. Now, occult is what's scary, or it just means hidden. Exactly, it just means hidden. That's all it means. But what was I saying? What was occulted? Something else was
the
occulted.
Sacrament from Dionysus.
Yes. The truth about how we became humans. If you follow McKenna's stoned ape theory, partaking of eating these substances that make us realize we are the oneness. We are all oneness. And it was occulted on purpose because how can you have any kind of monarchical society or any kind of gross inequality if everyone is getting together and taking these things as a community together and experiencing it together? I got a couple of cats myself.
This is Chairman Meow over here.
That's a great name. But they wanted to hide that from us. So that's another thing I hate.
I know who they are. I know who they are.
You know who I'm talking about. They keep that from us because you can't be controlled if you realize you're. Again, I don't want to give away the secret, so I'm not gonna. You try it yourself, kids. No, I'm kidding. Don't you ever. You have to wait till you're 21. I say wait till you're 21 to do anything. I lucked out. I was 22 when I did mushrooms at first. Just happened that way, but I lucked out because your brain has to fully develop. You have to learn. You have to learn stuff about the world first. And I was lucky enough that my path took me to learn basically the Trivium I Quadrivium. I was interested in astronomy and physics and philosophy and music and math and I was a good student actually. All up until high school when I started cutting class to try to be cool like my brother. What was I talking about?
We just talk about
smoking a little too much on 420. This is my.
Well, that's what you gotta do, man. You gotta give some back to the spirits.
Right. And I'm nervous as hell. I don't know if you've noticed. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. I know I'm talking a mile a minute and probably not being coherent, but
you're awesome. It's awesome. I love talking about the esoteric. I love hearkening back to Plato, the Lucinian mysteries and sacraments. And it's funny because I was just talking to someone about Aldous Huxley, and everybody knows Brave New World, but he wrote that other book called The Island. And in that book, everyone on that island is eating mushrooms. They're going through these ceremonies at like a young age. And, when you start reading between the lines in the literature of old, that those guys are just citing sources from even older. And so you're getting to read the mystery school literature through the initiates that are putting out the same stuff. And so it's interesting to see that story repeated. And that's probably why they did it in some of those books, is so that it could get out to the people who were ready to learn about it, you know?
If you have the eyes to see it, you know, but that's the point. It's in everything. It's not just in these hermetic manuals. It's in everything. There's a golden
on the
thread.
buildings. Yeah.
Yes, there's a golden thread running throughout history, but some people put it in their creative output on purpose. Some people don't even realize they're doing it. They're telling it's like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. It's everywhere. And that's the same story too, of dying to your earthly self, being reborn, you know, leaving home. That's the initiation ritual, you know, leaving home to fight the monster, slaying it, but only to realize that the true monster is yourself, and you have to face that, and then learning from that, and then returning home to bring back what you, that's what every song is about. That's what every movie is about. That's what everything is about in one way or another, whether they're trying to relay that message or not. And that's why it doesn't matter. It'll never be occulted. It'll never be gone. It'll always, and every you know, the Renaissance, every revitalization of the human race and culture, and it's always been because people relearn these ancient truths.
Yeah.
And it's happening again, I think, today.
Me too.
And it's beautiful.
It is. I love it. I'm a huge Joseph Campbell fan, and I recently started looking at Nietzsche tells it another way. He tells it about the story from the camel to the child, and how when you're a camel, right? That for some reason that one kind of spoke to me, probably because I didn't learn it till later in life. But you know, you fight the dragon of thou shalt, because there's no more scales for you to ride on, and then once you destroy the dragon, then you become a child. And
yes, you know, it's the same thing. You start off as the beast of burden, you know, your lower self, and then, but what's great about his version of it is that the baby is the final stage you want to reach, because you think, you're like, yes, I've become a human, but now I gotta. That's just, you know, the first step of a whole new journey. That's not the last step of anything, and it's beautiful, and it's fractal. Everything is fractal.
Yeah, it's so awesome. It's so awesome. Vlad, I got to have you back on, man. What do you think about coming back and having like a group discussion with like a couple more of us?
I'd love to, man. I'd love to. I had a great time. This was a blast. I hope, you know, I tried to cram too much stuff.
Not at all, brother.
I wanted to talk about into this little thing.
It's not, dude. It's perfect.
It was a learning experience. I thought it was, you know, it was great. And I thought about making, you know, starting a podcast too, but I couldn't find anyone that wanted to, you know, be my, you know, other person to bounce things off of. And,
just start it anyway. Just that's what I did. Just start recording. Like, just go off. Write out like a few notes, and then start giving people, like, go off on Joseph Campbell for 30 minutes, or talk about the Trivium for 30 seconds. You should be teaching that, man. Like, you should come on and be like, here's the Trivium as I learned it, and just go through rhetoric one day. But if you started doing that, I promise you, like, what's that old quote? The things that you're interested in are interested in you. Like, something's calling you to do that, brother. Sure. You should start it, definitely. I'll be your first guest if you want me to. But
that'd be great, man. That'd be awesome.
You can start it for free, man. You should totally do that. You'd be great at it.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm definitely ready to, you know, make the next step. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe
you
that's the direction this will go. Exactly. It's been a pleasure, brother George.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine. I'll shoot you an email in a little bit, but dude, this is awesome. It exceeded my expectations, dude. You're an awesome guy, and we're gonna be having some more conversations pretty soon. So be ready.
Thank you so much, brother.
All right, man. All right.
Take care, man.
Yep.
Chaka.
All right. Yeah.